You are listening to the Hiking Radio Network, where we talk the walk with shows by hikers, about hikers, for everybody.
Mighty Blue on the Appalachian Trail, the ultimate midlife crisis. Join Steve and his guests every week as he staggers from Georgia to Maine.
Hi guys, thanks for joining me while I'm actually on a break from the show. This is Mighty Blue on the Appalachian Trail, the ultimate midlife crisis, and I am Mighty Blue, or Steve Adams. This episode is coming out on April the 14th, and according to my spreadsheet, which I'm looking at now on March the 9th, I should be done with the West Highland Way by now and on my fourth day out of, I think it's 5, maybe 6, on Hadrian's Wall Path. I'm actually flying back to the States in a couple of days' time. Dana's already back at work after our awesome UK tour. With a bit of luck, it should have been a blast. As many of you know, I've been podcasting like a crazy man recently, front-loading about 20 or 30 episodes of all our live Hiking Radio Network shows so that service can continue in my absence. My commentary and my show notes will be shorter, and I won't be individually thanking our donors because, of course, I'm away. But the quality of our shows won't have suffered. We have another terrific guest today. Traci Galyon has a story to tell about how she first supported her husband's dream to hike the trail. Then she hijacked it and went herself. As you'll hear, we had quite a laugh in this one. I think you're going to enjoy it. After Traci, my very last Mighty Blue Class of 2022 catch-up was recorded 2 days before I left for the UK. Sarah Fox tells us about her plans to take Marshall, her dog. Sarah will be on after Traci. So let's get on and meet Traci Galyon, or Reroute. Today's guest's trail name is Reroute, or I think in English would say Reroute, but you probably say Reroute, don't you? Mm-hmm. But she's also the reluctant hiker. This is Traci Galyon. Hey, Traci, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Now, for many of my guests on this show, the Appalachian Trail is kind of the culmination of years of wishing and hoping and thinking about and dreaming about, yet for you, it was hardly on your radar, was it? Yeah. It was your husband who was the one who was desperate to do it, wasn't he? Tell us about him.
Yes, absolutely. My husband he really loves to hike. He hikes just kind of for fun all the time. And he's always trying to get everybody in the family to hike with him. And it's always really been that way. It's something that we can all do together, and he likes that. So he's been talking and researching about the PCT and the AT for years. And that kind of started getting me excited about the trail and everything. And we ended up deciding that this year, actually, we were going to hike the trail together. But of course, yes.
Right, so 2022 was going to be your year this year as a couple. But that isn't quite actually how it happened. But he was the one who was keen on getting the family going together.
Yes.
You've got kids as well?
We've got older children. They're 21, 22, and 23. Yeah.
Right. So the idea was just the two of you to go on the AT this year.
Yes.
But that didn't happen. Apparently he's researching the trail and the gear ready for this year and all that stuff. Yes. How did you actually get drawn into it though?
So he basically was researching, like I said, he was researching his gear. Gear was coming to the house. He was watching YouTube videos.
Oh, hang on. I didn't get that bit. He was actually preparing. He was actually buying gear as well.
Yes, a little bit. He's as I said before, he's methodical about things. He likes to really get things done in advance and research things really well. And I'm more of a fly by the seat of your pants kind of gal.
Apparently.
Yeah. And so he got his tent, I think it was, and his backpack. And all of a sudden I was like, wow, yeah, that's really great gear. Let me take a look at what I can find. And so, of course, I started researching a little bit. And he's like, wait, are you hiking with me? What's going on?
Hang on. I took terrible notes the other day because my notes didn't tell me any of this. So I'm doing this on the fly a little bit now. So the idea was actually not for the two of you to hike in 2022. It was actually for him to hike. Is that right?
Well, it started that way.
Yeah.
And then it developed as he was researching things. I started saying, well, okay, yeah, this is kind of fun. Okay, I think I might go. And then we decided that became, okay, this was going to be our 25th anniversary trip, this celebratory trip, and we were going to do
Hmm.
this together.
Well,
And
they'll either kill you or make you one of
right,
one of the two. You don't either make the 25th or you just wouldn't make it at all.
right.
So, but and I'm interrupting you only because I'm
That's
learning new
right.
things here because I actually I did take slightly different notes of this the other day. So you're getting drawn into it. So what's drawing you in? Is it the excitement or the prospect of doing it, or did you actually know what the Appalachian Trail itself was like then? Because you live on the West Coast, don't you?
Exactly. We live on the West Coast. I really didn't know what it was like. I knew a little bit about what hiking in New Hampshire was like because we lived in New Hampshire. My husband was in the military for 25 years. So
Right.
we had lived in New Hampshire at one point and had gone on a couple hikes over there. But I don't believe we were in the Whites at all. So I did know the terrain was
Yeah, you'd remember.
definitely different.
You'd definitely remember, wouldn't you?
Yeah, but he was getting so excited, and his excitement was really infectious. So I just kind of started going along with that, and I got really excited with him. And it started out I was excited for him, but then I got excited to kind of do something with him, and then I just surpassed that, and I was like, you know what, I've never done anything by myself. I've only been a wife and a mother, and I've never really done anything for myself. And now,
So hang on, so you ditched your hiking partner before you even started. Excellent. So, no, this takes me down a whole different rabbit hole. So you ditched your hiking partner. So did you say you didn't want him to come, or it just didn't work out that way?
it just didn't work out. Yeah.
It's all right. You weren't as bad as that. So
No.
that's not so bad then. So, and you were working at this time, were you?
I was working. Just, I worked in the morning from about 3, or I'd get up at 3 and work until early afternoon, early evening. And, it became a job that it was a really fun job. I had a great crew of people that I worked with and everything, but it was a job that as COVID was going into its madness, we had a lot of angry customers, and I really just kind of decided I was done with that. I didn't like being cussed at all the time. And I was really excited to do something else. And when this came along, I was just sort of like, yeah, I think I'm going to do this year.
It's good. Going on the OT has got to be a whole lot better than being cussed at in a shop. Yeah, I can see what. And you know what? And on reflecting that, actually, how COVID has impacted us. It isn't just people dying for the illness. It's the
Right.
it's the social effects of the whole thing, isn't it? I mean, people have been so bloody angry about everything, haven't they?
Yes.
Yeah, so you were ready to get out of that, and I guess becomes a bit of a perfect storm for you, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really did.
You get the enthusiasm, you don't like what you're doing, your people pissing you off and that, and what better to get away than actually sort of be in the woods? So you were researching that your husband did the research, but you were then researching yourself, didn't you? When did you?
A bit, yeah.
Oh right. You still let him do most of it. Oh, excellent. Yeah.
No, I just said I am a completely different person than he is. He's, like I said, methodical. He likes to really know what's coming at every step of the way, whereas
Right.
I kind of like to have a surprise element. And so I bought the AWOL book, and we bought the PDF version as well.
Right.
And of course, we had gut hooks, which is now far out. And so I just thought, it's not that far in between each resupply. Basically, day to day, it's hiking, which I can do. It's going to be tough. I can do that. But, I just have to kind of learn as I go. I've never done any backpacking. I've never done anything like this. So for me, I felt like, my husband always does lay out a plan. That's his thing,
Right.
and that's great. And it works well in our marriage. However, I'd never done anything like that for myself. So it was kind of exciting for me to do that and have that responsibility for myself.
So you took responsibility eventually. Obviously, if you're on a hike, your husband and researched a lot of it. Having hiked as a family and just done day hikes, I guess, and maybe the odd overnights, I'm not sure. But did you have to change your gear up quite a bit when you were getting ready?
Well, yeah, I didn't actually have any gear. We had,
Oh, right.
yeah, we had some backpacks that we had gotten for, we had gone camping in Ireland one time. And so we had some really massive packs, and they really weren't for this kind of hiking and backpacking and everything. So
that's for keeping the Guinnesses in, isn't it? In Ireland?
Yes.
Definitely. Yeah, I know.
Yes. Yeah. So I basically had to start from ground zero.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that was, I presume, at one stage you had to pull that trigger. You were going with him, then you weren't going with him. You decided you were going to do it. When did you actually say, this is it, I'm going? And you didn't go this year, obviously, because you'd still be out there. You obviously went last year. When did you finally decide, I'm going to do it? And you let him know. Was he supportive?
He was amazing, actually. He always has been our biggest supporters. He's always been my biggest supporter. But I kind of decided, and I said to him on my birthday, which was March 9th, I said, I think I want to hike the AT by myself this year. And he said, really? Are you kidding? This is great. And then I said, well, wait.
Bless him.
I said, I just have to, give me until our anniversary, which is the last day of March. I said, give me till then to decide. And he said, okay. And he kind of checked in with me. He didn't want to push me or anything, but he wanted to kind of check in. And on our anniversary, I said, yeah, I'm going to do it. And he said, okay, are you sure? And I said, yep. Once I've said I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. There's no holding me back unless I die. So,
yeah, that part, yeah.
But yeah, and he just, from the very get-go, he was completely supported, 100% in. He was a little jealous that he didn't get to go. And he was, yeah. And he was, just worried about me. I'm a little bit of a klutz, but yeah, other than that, he was just completely supportive. And if there were a couple times where I called, and when I first started my hike, I was pretty much alone until so I started in the Shenandoahs, and I started on April the 26th. And when I was getting ready to go into New Jersey, I basically went off the trail for about 10 days because I broke some toes. And I came home, and he was just, okay, all right, well, if you don't want to go back, that's fine. But he said, I know you, and if you don't go back, I know you're going to be mad at yourself. So what do you want to do? And I said, no, I do want to go back. I just want to be able to walk. And so he's 100% supportive. But again, I was by myself that whole time pretty much. I mean, you hike with people during the day. Sometimes you camp with people, but I didn't have a tramily. It was a very different experience for me in that respect.
Yeah, I want to talk about that experience.
Okay.
I'm now thinking, once again, something else I didn't hear the other day. You came home for 10 days. Now, I've done that. I did 7 days, I think, first time, but when I went first time. And getting back on trail, once you get used to using flushing toilets again and proper showers and stuff like that and eating properly, it's kind of it's a compellingly lovely thing to have happen to you. Did you always immediately want to go back on the trail, though? Did you feel like you couldn't re-assimilate back into life away from the trail?
I really felt like it was a part of me that I had to do. This is now a part of me. And when I came home, I was able to assimilate all right, but that was constantly on my mind. I really had to get back out there. Yeah. And even though I was lonely and everything like that at times, I just felt like it was something. Now I've started this. I've already committed to it. There's no way on this earth that I'm not going to finish it.
Right. And did you have that feeling throughout your trip? Were there ever any moments you thought to yourself, you know what, I just am not enjoying this. This is too lonely, or it's too difficult?
Yeah, actually. So I got back on trail after meeting up with my husband. After going to Katahdin, I met with my husband. We went to Boston. We went to some ball games, and And then I had to get back on trail going south from Shenandoah's. And that time, it was a heat wave for Virginia. And, sort of 97 degrees the first day I went back on trail. Yeah. And so it was this heat wave, and I now had seen my husband, who I hadn't seen in a while. And, I really felt like I don't want to be here anymore. But it wasn't that I didn't want to finish the miles. It was just that, oh my gosh, I can't believe that it's still going to be 2 more months on trail without my family, and all of that. So mentally, that part, going south from that part, was very lonely for me. It was very trying mentally. And I did need to call and talk to my husband quite often. But I had been on trail about 10 days. And then I finally ran into a couple people that I had met up in Maine. So that was kind of nice.
Isn't that wonderful how that happens?
Yeah. So it made me feel great that, hey, I'm back with people that I've met before. But then just slipping this in, then I sort of started getting where I wanted to do bigger miles, because I did feel mentally I was getting to the point where I was done. I wanted to be done. So I met a young girl called Bugs, and she was sort of doing 25 to 30 plus miles a day. And I was ready. My body was ready, but also mentally I was ready to do that. And I wasn't sure my body was ready to do that, because she said, are you able to do 30 miles? And I was like, I don't know. Let's see, and and so we did a number of 30 plus mile days, and it felt great. And mentally it was, kind of a kick for us. It was like, yeah, this is great. We can do this. And
how did you feel? That's interesting. So you must be in your 40s if you're 25.
I am about to turn 50.
Okay. Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm excited.
Trust me, congratulations is a lie when they say that to you, because it's massively all downhill from here. My 50th was 20 years ago, so believe me on that one. So how did you feel once you started upping those miles to 30? Did you actually get quite a physical and a mental buzz out of doing 30 miles?
I did. I mean, especially there was one night where we were dropped off at the trailhead. It was sort of like 10:30, I believe, because it took us a while to get there, and we were the last shuttle to go. Right. And we actually slack packed this day, so it was great in that respect. But
well, it was greatest invention, by the way, slack packing, just so you know.
But we started at sort of 10:30, but we had 4 miles to do that day. Wow. And we made it just at nightfall. We made it. I mean, we were coming in and everybody was like, they're not going to be there. Wow. She was amazing. Bug was amazing. And so she would really set the pace for us. And, it felt good. And, sometimes you don't realize that your body is capable of doing things, and mentally it's holding you back. But
that's what I was thinking, actually. That's what I was asking you, because, that is a challenge. If you're starting to be done, and yet that mere act of increasing to 30 miles almost gave you the flip you needed, wouldn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And so she would kind of set the pace. And if we'd slow down, if there was a really big up or something and we'd slow down, she'd say, well, it's fine. We're still going over 3 miles an hour. So we're fine. And I kept saying to her, Bugs, if you need to go ahead without me, she said, I'm not leaving you. But we did it. And we came in and we had said to the people, hey, we would really like some hot dinner when we get in. So if there's any possibility that you can hold something, it would be great. And they said, if the food cart is closed before you get back, we'll order something for you and hold it off. So we got in and everybody's like, there they are. And they're like starting to cheer and clap. And we were it was so amazing to have people cheering and clapping for you. And you're thinking, all I did was hike. We felt good about it, but for somebody else to recognize that, it kind of was great. I don't know.
I'm actually want to take you back a few miles though to when you actually started, something you told me the other day, which I did write down correctly this time, hopefully, when we were talking about your gear and your logistics and so on, you got a pack from, tell me about it, Outdoor Vitals, was it?
Absolutely. It's the Shadowlight 45-liter pack. It's from Outdoor Vitals. Love that pack. In fact, I'm going to use it on...
That's small, isn't it? 45 litres. Quite small for AT.
I felt like it was pretty big compared to everybody else's pack, but I mean, it was sufficient. It was more than sufficient for me. In fact, there are pockets on the outside of that pack. And sometimes, especially at the start, I had to be really careful not to shove it with a couple of extra like last minute items. But that pack was absolutely amazing. It held up great. It had outdoor netted pockets on the outside front and it too, not one, like a lot of people have the one.
Sure.
And it had a zipper down the front, but I mean, that thing held up even in the whites and in New Hampshire and Maine where those little branches, you know what I'm talking about, where they're really, really stiff and they just catch everything and rip it.
Everything, literally.
Everything. It did not ruin my pack. And I was just so excited about that. But yeah, and I'm actually going to use that on the PCT this year. I'm still going to use the same pack. I love it.
Well, funnily enough, the reason I mentioned it, because you said that they ran a thru-hiker competition. I know that when I went in 2019, Oboes did a thru-hiker thing where they would change your shoes 3 times, which is, they were changing twice. So you had 3 pairs of shoes from Oboes for free, which was great. But they did something like that to you, didn't they? They had a competition, didn't they?
Yeah, so I purchased the pack when I was doing my research. My thought in purchasing this pack was that I noticed the price on it, and where I said I have never really backpacked before, I've never done any backpacking and camping. I didn't want to spend $400 on a pack that I wasn't sure I was going to make it. And so I thought, oh, this price is really good. I believe it was just under $200 at the time. It was a new backpack that had just come out, so it was on sale. And it was also sub 2 pounds. So for me, it was all the good things that all these other packs had, but the price was better for me. And so, but it turned out to be the only pack I'll probably ever use. I mean, it was amazing. So, all around, it was great. But once the pack came out, I was just about to start trail, and this announcement came out that, hey, you know, we're going to offer a new pack and $1,000 to the first hiker that finishes a long trail with our pack. And I was like, that probably won't be me, but, you know, in the back of my mind, that's going to be me.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And it actually was. I finished the trail and I submitted all my photos and all my trail logs and everything to them. And they were like, I think we were out celebrating at the pub. And I said, I got an email from Outdoor Vitals. And it said, you have won our competition. And I was just so excited. Yeah.
You got the free pack.
I got another pack,
and $1,000 of credit. Happy days.
Yes, happy days. It helped me resupply anything that I needed to get for the PCT this year.
Yeah. So we're going to come to PCT in a minute. Yeah. When you did, you told us earlier on that you started in the Shenandoahs. Did you? Mm-hmm. I saw, I think on your video, you said you were going south to start with, or what was the plan?
So the first day, I wasn't really meaning to start. I was actually planning to start on the 28th. Yeah. And, but I was able to slack pack. And so I was out there with the intention of learning how to use gut hooks far out and, just everything. I had never used InReach Mini. I had never used gut hooks. I'd never used any of that. And I really wanted to just be out there trying it out. And I know a lot of people will say, how terrible that is that I would wait until I get there to try it out. But I figured I'd just practice for a couple days and then it'd be easy enough and I'd learn and then I'd go. But what happened was... That
is entirely understandable to me. I'm exactly the same. For my 2019, I didn't even pack until the morning I left for Orlando.
It just seems like the earlier I pack and the earlier I start doing things, the more anxious I get.
Second guess yourself. Yeah, you're right.
Yes, exactly. I mean, now with the PCT, going back to that really quickly, with that, I mean, we've been planning this And so I don't know how many times I've packed my pack, unpacked it, repacked it. I'm just ready to go, like,
Yeah.
hey, I cut the dogs, I washed the dogs, I got the house clean, I'm ready to go, But it doesn't happen like that. We have a date and we have to wait until that date to start. So,
Well, I can share with you, we're recording this on Sunday, March the 6th. I leave for the UK and I'm doing my hike in April, but I leave for the UK Thursday, March the 10th, and I still haven't even found my pack yet, let alone pack the bloody thing. So I've got a rough idea where it is. So I think I will find it.
Right.
So what was the plan? You were in the Shenandoahs. You went south to start with because you were slack packing. So
Yes.
you then went north in the Shenandoahs, did you?
Yeah, so I started at Black Rock Gap, I believe it was, and Black Rock Gap? I think it was Black Rock Gap. And then went north from there. So the days before that, I had gone south just because that was what they did for the slack pack. And then so on technically my third day in, that's when I started going north. And then I went north to Katahdin, and then got to Katahdin.
Was that a pretty cool day?
It was amazing. Now, I will tell you, I feel like my husband says that if he completes the PCT, that next year will be his year to do the AT. And I do plan to go with him, because on every single view, and if you've watched my videos up to this point, on every single view up until the whites, I had no views. And so everything was socked in. And I just kind of basically would say, well, it's socked in. All right, well, we'll see what's coming next,
Yeah.
But I really would love to be on Mount Washington and, Franconia Ridge, all of these with some views.
Franconia Ridge was socked in for you as well, was it?
Yes.
Oh, that is one of the most amazing places.
Yes.
And when you see it, it takes your breath away. So the fact that it was just fog or cloud or whatever it was must have been a nightmare. But you did these early miles through Shenandoah, which is quite a nice, easy, gentle way to start. But research and reality are two very different things, aren't they?
Yes.
So I know you're winging it as you're going on, as you say. How did the reality feel? Did it feel good?
It was exciting, but I will say everybody kept going, oh, you're starting in the Shenandoahs. Oh, it's so easy. However, starting for the very first time with a pack in the Shenandoahs is not easy to somebody who, and also I think I told you, I've run, but before I started, I hadn't been running for about 2 months because I had an Achilles issue.
Oh,
so, so I hadn't done anything essentially for about 2 months. And so I start with my pack, and to me, it was not flat, because now I'm going through these rolling hills, as everybody says, but they felt...
Traci, flat is a relative term. It really is. Yeah. It's hilly or less hilly.
Yes, exactly. So I was excited to be out there. I will say that the first day that I got out there, I was not able to be with my pack. I was not able to be dropped off until it was sort of like, I believe 2:30 in the afternoon, 2 or 2:30 in the afternoon. It was a day that was just shy of 90 degrees. And I had a original plan to go 11 miles because that was where the first shelter was. And my plan was, in my head, I thought, okay, well, I'm just going to go shelter to shelter while I'm in the Shenandoahs, because then I'll be able to see people.
Sure.
And I felt like I've never done this before. I should probably be around people. And so the first night I made it 8 miles, and I realized dusk was coming on, and I had to camp somewhere. And I had to go off path. I had to find a stealth spot. I was going to PCT and I was going to PCT hang my bear bag, which right at dusk was scary because my line caught on the tree limb and I couldn't get it down. And I'm sitting there just praying, like, please help me. I do not want to be eaten by a bear on my first night.
Were there tears?
No tears, just sort of like, I really can't die tonight. That would be just the worst thing ever. Just let me do one night at least. And, and then I finally just calmed down a little bit, and I looked over to my right, and there was a stick that was long enough to help me with my bear bag. And everything was fine. I did not get much sleep that night. Every time I heard anything, I was sort of like, what is that? Could that be a
It's
bear?
anything. It's anything is what it is. Yeah,
Yes,
you just never know, do
exactly.
you?
But yeah, basically, I'm alive. So, I mean, obviously, I was fine. Everything, you just need to kind of take things in perspective and kind of calm yourself down when you get to that point, I think.
I
And
totally agree.
yeah, I mean, you allow your emotions and your thoughts to overtake a situation, and it's very difficult to think. And like I said, when I calmed down, it was just a few minutes, but when I calmed down, I looked to my right and there was a stick. And when I calmed down and realized that even if there was a bear right out there, everything was put away properly, I was good.
Yeah, yeah. And I think you're very brave that first night to do it. It took me 400 miles on my first night to sleep anywhere away from a shelter by myself. And I didn't like it at all. I was hoping people would come into camp. I almost wanted to start shouting out to people, come on, stop here. but they didn't. It was a nightmare. So you mentioned you're a runner, or you were a runner. Did you have any impact of the Achilles on the trail? Because and I kind of wonder, is the impact upon your legs different as a runner to a hiker, or is it similar sort of thing?
I'm not sure exactly. Like I said, I didn't do much hiking. Mostly, I really enjoy to run, but I did continuously have problems with my Achilles out there. I just was not willing to accept it was a problem that was going to keep me from hiking. I would roll out my feet every night. I wore compression socks every night, which people thought was really strange, but I did. I wore them every night, and it really helped with recovery. I found that every morning I felt fresh. As soon as I put the boots on and got hiking, I could feel that heel, because that's where it really reflects in your hiking, the Achilles. It feels like your heel is bruised or something.
Funny you mentioned compression socks. I've had blood clots in the past, one of which went to my lung, which wasn't good, or a blood clot rather in the past. And my girlfriend has bought some compression socks for the flight. We haven't had flown anywhere for ages. Right. But you're just saying you actually wore them at night as well, and you found that good for the recovery. Oh, interesting. Yes. I'm gonna try that when I do the West Island Way.
So people would say that they thought you should wear them whilst you were hiking. I never found that to be something that would be comfortable. I sometimes will wear them when whilst I'm running, I will sometimes wear them. But again, it's not the most comfortable thing. I like my legs to be, clear of anything touching them, really. But when I'm sleeping, that you kind of go through this period. It's kind of weird. It's like the first maybe 15 minutes that you're lying still, it's almost like this pain, you feel the pain of your legs and everything. And then all of a sudden it just kind of relaxes you. And I would stretch and point my toes all night, whenever I'd kind of wake up a little to shift on my pad or something. But I just felt like I never noticed after sort of a certain point of the night. And and it was amazing. Yeah, I recommend them.
So you finished at Springer. As I always call it, that scrubby little path to Springer. Yes. That was your Kazard, happy days.
Yeah. I know. I kept saying, are we climbing a mountain right now? This is awesome.
Yeah. So were you satisfied with the hike? In fact, hang on, I won't even bother asking you that, 'cause clearly you were satisfied with the hike, I guess, but it just fuels your desire to do some more, because you and your husband are now going to do the PCT. And that must be a really changing dynamic now. He's the newbie, isn't he? You're the one who's kind of the old hand. Right. Have you talked about that different dynamic with a joint hike as opposed to a single person hike?
Yes. I mean, we've talked a lot about this, actually, very in depth, because again, he's a very different person to me as well. He will actually turn around.
I bet he's got a spreadsheet, isn't he?
Oh my gosh, you know him. How did you? Graphs, charts, and spreadsheets. That's his thing.
It's not the toughest thing to guess, I'm going to tell you.
But he is he wants to make sure that everything is accurate. And so he consults me, and I say to him, I'm going to be a very different hiker to you. You're going to have to learn this as you go. And as much as I want to tell you what works for me, it's not necessarily going to work for you. There are going to be other hikers out there that can tell you what works for them. And if you listen to them, it could be wrong for you as well. So you just have to figure it out. And it sounds mean because he really needs that research and everything, but he's finding out as we're taking our full packs out there and going on some trails, he's finding out that he really is going to have to figure out what was working for him.
So let me get this straight then. So last year you ditched him, and this year you're not going to help him. Excellent. This is going to go so well. I mean, why wouldn't anybody think of that? So
it's how we stayed married for 25 years.
Yes. He's sharing a tent at all, or is he on his own?
No, he has his own tent. Only time he is allowed to come in my tent, I told him, or I'm going to go into his, is if it's really, really cold and our gear isn't, like the Sierras, we just don't know. That could be really cold. So then we might have to share a tent. Then we're at an advantage to everybody else, right?
Yeah, I guess, yeah. So that's funny. So have you had the conversation yet? What happens if one of you wants to quit? Will the other one continue, do you think?
Yes, we have had this conversation. We've had the conversation basically like we have a safe word if either one of us is mad at each other and like I need to be by myself or he needs to be by himself. He is kind of a jokester at all times. He likes to, it's a submariner thing, I guess, but when they find something that really aggravates you, they keep digging. Whereas for me,
that's a bloke thing.
Is it? Okay. For me, I like to joke, but then there's times where I like my quiet time and I like to be by myself. So we created a safe word for that.
Is he laughing off camera, Bart? Is he laughing off camera?
He's upstairs. I made him stay upstairs with the kids.
I see you look sideways then.
I wondered if he popped in, but no. But we also did talk about, if he got injured or I got injured and we couldn't continue, or if one of us just really didn't want to continue. My truth to him was that once I start, I don't believe in quitting. So I have to either be dragged off the mountain or, whatever. I'm not going to quit it. So I told him that if he starts with me, that he can't quit either.
I've got to tell you, I think you're a lovely person, but you said 3 nightmare things, by the way, now. You abandoned him last year. You're not going to give me up this year. And he's got to get over it. That's hilarious.
Well, we like to joke. I mean, but in all honesty, if something happens where one of us cannot continue or is not going to continue, the other one does want to keep going. And so what will happen is the other one, since we live on the West Coast, it would be easier for us to do this. One of us will offer then trail support in any way that we can. So,
well, I tell you, he obviously thinks the world of you because he wrote to me about you originally, didn't he? So, he wanted you on the show because he's so damn proud of you. And I really appreciate him reaching out to me for that. And you know what? I'd love to have him as a guest when he does the AT. By himself, with no help from you next year. Clearly, you're absolutely no help whatever.
He says it's really funny because one of my hiking partners at Katahdin was Underdog, and he is actually going to go on the PCT with us. Sorry, Underdog, if you haven't made the announcement yet, but he
actually, this isn't coming out to the middle of April, so it's okay.
So perfect,
you'll be out there, yeah.
So he's going to go on but when we all get together and we kind of have a Zoom chat, he and Dawn keep talking about how I'm going to leave them, and they're like, Tracy's a really strong hiker. She's just going to leave us. We'll see her every night at camp. And Dawn keeps saying, well, if you want to hike ahead a couple days, it's fine. Where does this come from? Do you really think I'm going to leave you?
Oh, dear, that is so funny. I tell you what, I'm so glad. Thanks, Dawn. Thanks for reaching out to get Tracy to tell her story, because she's a pisser with all these things. and I think it's a great story. And I two offers. I want to hear about your PCT hike together if you don't kill each other before the end of it. And then I want to hear Don's hike next year on the AT, okay?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. So I appreciate you coming on the show and telling us your story, all right?
Thank you so much for having me.
Cheers then.
Cheers. Bye.
I must say, editing that, I hadn't realised quite how much we'd been laughing. She was a lot of fun to chat with, and her situation kept me thinking of silly things to say. What a guy that Don must be, eh? We'll definitely have them both on later in the year. Now it's Sarah Fox and her thought process regarding whether or not, or when, to take a dog on the trail. Here's Sarah. Well, I'm back on with Sarah Fox. I'm recording Sarah on Tuesday, March the 8th, 2 days before I leave. Hey, Sarah, how are you?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
Well, I'm pretty good, and I'm getting excited for my holiday, and you're probably getting excited for the Appalachian Trail. And I didn't realise this at the time, or I didn't work it out properly. This is going to come out on the 14th of April, and you're actually starting the trail the day later, aren't you?
Yep.
So how are preparations coming along?
Pretty good. I think I'm past that point where I'm obsessing over my gear. I feel like everybody goes through.
I bet you haven't. I bet it'll come back.
I'm sure it will once I get out there. I'm really just kind of fine-tuning things at this point. Trying to make my pack as light as possible, but I think I've reached that point where that can only happen if I replace some of the big items, which I'm not doing. So just trying to consolidate, different hygiene items and various things in my pack that I don't need the full amount. And really focusing, I think, on conditioning, like physically and mentally, to prepare myself for it.
Yeah, I didn't do any of that. I didn't do any of that at all. Yeah. I was a big bloke when I started, and I was a less big bloke when I finished. It works out that way with guys. Not so much with women. Women tend to maintain their weight. They don't generally lose so much.
Right. Well, and I'm really going out there not thinking I'm going to lose any weight. I think it's more conditioning my joints and just my body for the physical activity. So it's not as strenuous of a start at the beginning. Right. And I think the mental preparation is a part that maybe people don't talk about as often, that is just as important, if not more important, than the physical aspect. Well,
you know what? Funny enough, I know Zach Davis, who brilliantly wrote a book about the mental aspect of hiking the trail before he'd hiked the trail. Mm-hmm. I mean, I have no idea how he did that. So what are you doing to prepare for it mentally?
So I like to have a regular routine, like mindfulness routine, whether that's journaling or meditating. Because I think that's going to be a big part of my experience out on the trail, because I want to be kind of really focused and present. And also when you get in that negative headspace where you're not feeling like you want to be out there any longer, how do you get yourself back to the point you were when you started? And I think being mindful and meditating can really help with that.
Interesting. I could tell you, I'd love to hear what your comments are after 7 straight days of rain, though. So how well that works out for you.
I'm sure I won't sound nearly as positive. But, if I can at least keep myself out there, that's the goal.
Now, I know you're doing flip-flop, aren't you?
Yes. Yep.
And you're starting at Harper's? I can't remember where you're starting. Is it Harper's?
Yep.
Right. And are you taking your dog at the start, or is your dog joining you some of the way?
I've been thinking about that. And originally I was going to start with him. And I think it might be better for both of us if I get out there and see what the trail conditions are like, how many people I'm running into, how many dogs I see, and then make the decision when to bring Marshall, my dog, out with me. Because I want to make sure that, especially at the beginning, that I'm having a good experience and it's not too stressful managing a dog while also starting out the hike. And it looks like there's a lot more people bringing dogs this year, and it's becoming more of a popular activity with your dog, which is great. But I know not all of those dogs.
Is it great? I don't agree with you there. I don't think it's that great. I think it's great for some people, but not great for others. And it certainly ain't great for some dogs.
Right. Well, you got to let me finish my thoughts. So
I know.
I think it's great for a lot of dogs and dog owners, but the dogs have to be prepared for the hike. They have to be trained for the hike, and so do the owners. And I know that it's important for me to put my dog in a positive situation where he's not going to be overly stressed or just in an environment where it's not a good experience for either of us. And I think the best way to do that is to just see what the trail's like at the beginning and decide if it's a good idea to bring him out there with me or not.
Interesting. And what would be the factors that make you decide that it's a good idea then?
I think the camping locations and how busy they are, how many other dogs that we see, and how behaved those dogs are. Because it can be really stressful, especially if you're camping in a small area around a lot of people. If there's multiple dogs that are loose and that aren't reacting well to other people and other dogs. If you add more dogs into that equation, it just creates a lot of stress. And also, how many people are we running into when we're actually hiking? You know, how busy is it out there?
How is Marshall when he comes into contact with other dogs generally?
Marshall's great when he's hiking. He's a very focused dog because he's a hunting breed and we spend a lot of time on the trail together. But he can be a little bit reactive to dogs that don't handle the environment well. So if we're camping and there's a dog that's loose, that's getting into other people's space and not respecting his space, that can be a not so great situation for him and for me as his owner.
Why does he have the human equivalent of a punch up then with the other dog?
I think it's more of just I can tell that he's stressed, and another person might not be able to see that from his body language, but I can. And I think that you're already putting your dog under a lot of stress being out there with you for so long. I don't want that added at the campsites when he's supposed to be relaxing. Also for myself, I don't want to have to be in this mindset of managing the other dogs that are around him and managing his experience if I'm trying to relax and trying to decompress and get ready for the next day as well.
It's funny, you know, I'm getting a bit of a vibe from you that because your organisation or your website is Adventures with My Dog, so you are really attuned to your dog and you work with dogs and you know what you're doing. I'm kind of getting the vibe you're all half considering going pretty much the whole way by yourself. Is that a possibility that Marshall won't come out at all, do you think?
I think it's a possibility, but I'm pretty confident there should be some areas that we would have a good time together out there. Right. And I know that he would enjoy hiking as long as it's a safe environment for him. So I think I'm just trying to be really conscientious of how I make that decision. But, you know, if it comes down to it and it's too busy and I think it's going to be too stressful for him, I'll leave him at home. Yeah.
So how do you prepare a dog for the trail? You said you're preparing him for the trail. How do you prepare him? Or is your preparation for him you checking what it's like on the trail?
So I think there's a conditioning aspect for the dogs, and sometimes that's maybe not focused on because we see them, you know, they're animals. We assume that they have the athletic ability to go as far as we do, but dogs can get injured just like humans can. So making sure he's conditioned for the trail by going on, you know, day hikes with him. He likes to run with my husband and I, so he gets out a lot. But then also making sure I have the right gear for him and that his training is up to par. On my website, I actually put together a training plan for adventurous dogs and the common cues that I use when out in the woods. Because I see that a lot of people just bring their dogs out with them and they're really not ready for that. They need more training at home to keep them safe.
I saw that. Oh, that's pretty cool. Yeah. So, and what about the hike itself? Are you excited for the hike, or is all your thoughts at the moment about whether to take Marshall or not?
I'm excited for the hike just because there's going to be environments that we just don't have in Michigan. Michigan's a pretty flat state. We have some beautiful areas, but it's just not the same being out on a long trail that, you know, the same type of hiking that we have here in the Midwest. So that I'm definitely excited for. And I think just the experience of meeting new people and seeing a new environment and also getting some time to be out by myself and, you know, go on an adventure alone, I think is really cool. Even though I am starting off with my mom, so she's coming a little bit with me because she's also a backpacker. And that's her way of also preparing herself for her through hike in a couple of years.
So how long are you hiking with your mum for, by the way?
Just a couple of weeks.
What if she says, sod it, I'm going to do it all. Stays out.
You know,
Would that be great?
She has a job she has to come back to.
Oh, there's that, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't think that's going to happen. But who knows? I mean, maybe she'll extend it. I think that would be great. We hike and backpack together really well.
She will hate to stop after 2 weeks, I tell you. I can almost guarantee it.
She's actually already section hiked a lot of the trail. So the Harper's Ferry section, she's already done by herself. So That also, I think, is going to help me just be in a positive mindset and not be too freaked out about being out there, because she's already done that section. So she kind of knows like where we're going to be camping, the different areas that we're going to be focused on. And then she'll go back to Michigan.
By the way, don't let the first section from Harper's Ferry lull you into a false sense of security, because it's literally flat for about 3 miles along the towpath, along the pathway, alongside the river. So you think, well, what's going on? Nothing's happening, and then suddenly you start going up again. You're okay. You're back into what the mountains are. But look, so when this comes out, you're going to be starting the very next day. So I wish you well. And when I get back, which will be the day after you start, in fact, I'm going to call you that week. So we'll get your first couple of days' impressions of the trail and whether Marshall's there with you or not.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Okay. Thanks for chatting with us then, Sarah. And I'll speak to you soon, okay?
Sounds good.
Cheers then. Bye.
Bye.
She seems to be so on top of what to do, doesn't she? Making a decision based upon prevailing conditions seems to make a lot of common sense to me. To be honest, I wish a few more people thought like that before committing to taking their dog on a long trail. So there we are. I didn't miss a week. Next week, I'll be back. Don't know who the guest is yet, but at least I'll be here. I'll see you next week.